What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the 2025 rookie class and talking about which rookie picks I would be looking to acquire, which rookie picks I'd be looking to trade away, whether that's moving up in certain rounds, moving back in others, pivoting out of rounds entirely, just kind of looking at where I think the value is, and then also projecting how that will change after the NFL draft. So let's just dive right into it here. And you can see with this tier list, these are just the general players that are going to be available in these ranges. It's not perfect. Every draft is going to be different. I do think this year especially, there's going to be a lot of variance, but just an overall idea. I'm using the Dynasty Data Lab to get my ADP. I think it's a pretty solid service. If you guys do want to check it out, it's free. You can just look at the ADP, look at the odds of like certain players being available at certain draft picks. But starting off here at the 101, this is a year where there are not multiple contenders for the number one overall spot. Even like last year, Caleb Williams was probably the consensus 101, but there were still people that, might have gone with a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. I think in 99% of rookie drafts, Ashton Genty is going to be the 101, which means there is a pretty significant difference from the 101 to the 102. And so if you do hold that 101, I don't think I'd be super interested in like trading back. Now, if you want to trade that pick for like a Jahmyr Gibbs, a Bijan Robinson, a Puka Nacua, a Brian Thomas Jr., I talked about those in my video yesterday, I would definitely be willing to do it. But in terms of like trying to trade back to like the 102, 103, 104, I wouldn't be a huge fan of it unless you're getting another solid asset on top of it. If I was someone sitting there with the 102, 103, I'd be trying to send that pick in a third, even a late second. I'd feel pretty good about those offers to move up to the 101. Now, looking at that second grouping here, the 102 through the 104. Now, right now, there are three players that are kind of consistently going in this range. Those are Amarion Hampton, Tet McMillan, and then Cam Ward. And I want to make it pretty clear, this is not an area I want to draft in. If I have a pick 102, 103, 104, I'm going to be trying to either move up into that 101 or move back in the first round. I am not expecting a consensus to kind of lock in here in this range. I think of these three, a round one Hampton, which does seem pretty likely, I do think he deservingly will go here in the top four. And then you could also make the case that like Cam Ward right now, minus 10,000 to go number one overall, like he is going to be the number one pick, but he's still not an elite quarterback prospect, not someone who has a super high fantasy ceiling. So like, could he go here? He might be in my top four, but do I actually want to sit here in this spot and make that pick? Probably not. McMillan right now is minus 185 to be the first wide receiver off the board. He would be my first like pure wide receiver. Obviously Travis Hunter, a completely different situation, but I still wouldn't feel great about spending a top four pick on him. And there's also going to be people that are potentially reaching up for a Travion Henderson, who I do think would probably be here in my own rankings. Some people might be reaching for a Tyler Warren. Some people like Quinshawn Judkins. So the fact that there's not a lot of consensus, and I just don't think there's like a clear top dog or a top few that would go here, it would make me want to move back in the first round if possible. Now, looking at kind of like the middle of that first round, the 105 through the 107, the guys you're going to be looking at here, Travion Henderson, Tyler Warren, Quinshawn Judkins. Now, I do think it's possible you get some of those dudes from the early first round to potentially fall here, which I think already makes it a more appealing option than picking in that early first round area. I'm fine with Henderson at the 105. I think Warren's fine at the 106, but I do think you're kind of drafting him pretty close to his peak, especially when there's another tight end who I like that I think is going at a much more reasonable price. And then I'm just not a huge Quinshawn Judkins guy, so him at the 107, I wouldn't be huge on. But like I said, I do think this is a range where you could, find a falling Hampton or a falling Ward or a falling McMillan if some people are kind of in love with some of the other prospects in this class. And then these are the guys going in the later first round, and this is a range that I really like. So you've got guys like Travis Hunter, Shadur Sanders, Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden, Caleb Johnson, Colston Loveland. And I do want to make a point here on Travis Hunter because I think he's someone whose value is going to rise after the NFL draft. Right now, he is a 3-1 favorite to be drafted second by the Cleveland Browns. And obviously, the big holdup here for Travis Hunter is just the position thing, right? You don't want to be stuck holding a cornerback in the NFL who's not playing wide receiver because in your, normal dynasty leagues, that is not going to help you out unless, you have defensive players. But when we look at this potential landing spot here with the Browns, their GM, Andrew Berry, has talked about how they view him primarily as a wide receiver. And if you're telling me that Travis Hunter is just a wide receiver, we're obviously not going to get that guarantee. But like, if that was the situation we were in, you could make a very strong case that he is the 102 and potentially even competing with Ashton Genty to be the 101 in this class. And so he's someone that I want to be overweight on. I want to be higher than consensus. And I do think if you want to draft him, you're probably going to have a higher pick after this, just when people kind of figure out that if he's probably playing wide receiver, he should be going higher than this. But in this range, I still like some of the options here. If you're picking in the late first and you can get an Emeka Egbuka, a Colston Loveland, I think those are really solid values. I think Loveland and Warren are a lot closer as prospects than a lot of people think. And if you can get, Loveland 1-2 turn compared to Warren mid first, I think that's, a solid move. For Egbuka, I just think he's a super safe prospect, just someone who can bank a ton of wide receiver 2 seasons for you, and someone who could go in that sweet spot where he's projected to go late round 1, where he could also find himself in a very, very fun landing spot. So I really do like this range, like the 111 through like the 202. And as we talk about that early second round, we are looking at guys like Jackson Dart, Matthew Golden, Trey Harris, Cam Scatabo. I think this is an area of this rookie class that is going to strengthen after the NFL draft. You look at some of the guys in this tier. Jackson Dart right now is minus 210 to go in the top 24 picks. So it is seeming very, very likely that he is going to get that round 1 draft capital. You have Jalen Milroe, who has accepted an invitation to the NFL draft. Now, that's not perfect. That's not to say he's easily going to go on day 1, go in the first round. But like, if your agent is tapped in, you're probably not wanting to accept that if you think you're going to slip out of the first round. You don't want like a Will Levis situation. Now, like I said, it's not perfect. I want to say a few years ago, you had like Matt Corral, who I think was there for round 1 and didn't end up going until I believe day 3. So like, agents can be really off. This is not a guarantee that he's going in round 1, but the fact that he's even getting an invitation and that he's potentially accepting, like he does have a shot to go round 1, and a quarterback with that type of rushing upside could totally be going in this area if the draft capital's there. I think Matthew Golden is going to go around pick 20. I'm actually surprised that people aren't higher on him. I just think, he tested well, very good route runner. I think when he gets that solid round 1 draft capital, he is going to rise in value. And then I think Scatabo, if he goes day 2, he's going to be fun. But I think there is going to be a fall off there after like that Scatabo area. I'm not huge on Trey Harris, especially in this range when you can get wide receivers in a similar tier much later. But I do think like early round 2, these picks are going to be solid. And then I think there is going to be a pretty solid drop off unless some running backs have some draft capital come through in a really big way. And now let's look at that mid-round 2 guys you could be looking at here. So Milroe's here right now. Like I said, I think if the draft capital's there, he's going to go much higher than this just with his upside. You've got running backs like Neal and Sampson. You have a wide receiver in Higgins. And this is just not a spot that I want to be drafting in. I feel like this is where you're going to be reaching in a very large tier of running back and wide receiver, where like you might like Neal and Sampson at the running back position here. Like Higgins might be your top wide receiver in this tier. And I actually do like Higgins. But do I like Higgins in the mid-second more than I like Jalen Noel in like the early round 3? Probably not. Same thing with these running backs. Like I think you could be making cases for DJ Giddens, RJ Harvey, and you can get those guys in the early 3rd, whereas you're having to pay up a mid-second to draft guys that I think are probably going to be in the same tier. So if I was sitting here with a mid-second round pick, before things really got set in stone, I would either be trying to move back in the 2-3 turn area, or I'd be trying to jump into those first like 15, 16-ish picks where I do think that area is going to strengthen. I wouldn't love sitting here and being on the clock, at least with how things are looking now and how I think they are going to develop after the NFL draft. And then when we're getting into this 2-3 turn area, I like it. You've got, a wide receiver like Aya Manor. You have got Ollie Gordon, who I'm not huge on, but fine. Bashal Tutin, Isaiah Bond. So this is the spot where like, wide receivers in those same tiers, I'm fine taking them here more than I am in the mid-second. Same thing with like a Bashal Tutin. Like I think you can argue him over some of the guys that are going in the mid-second round, and you're getting him here at the 2-3 turn. And then round 3, it's kind of tough to project at this point, right? Draft capital very up in the air, but you've got guys like Arroyo, Giddens, Harvey, Fannin, Ewers, Royals, Martinez, Taylor, Betch, and then Restrepo. just within this range, I think right now I'm probably going to be someone who is favoring the running backs and then also probably the tight ends here. Also, maybe like Tyler Shuck at quarterback if he gets decent draft capital. Like, I think round 3 picks will be solid. I think if you want running backs, you can throw a lot of darts in this area, but I wouldn't say it's like an amazing round 3 at this point. So here are just like my major takeaways on the picks I'd be looking to target. I'm expecting a lot of variance in pretty much all the rounds. I don't think there is going to be a locked in consensus. I don't think there are going to be like these lockdown tiers where like you know that this dude's probably going to go in one specific range. In the first round, I wouldn't say I love the early picks outside of the 101. Like at the 101, I'm feeling good. 102, 103, 104, feeling a little bit sketchy, would prefer to move back. I'd honestly be willing to move back on pretty much like all my first round picks. The one dude I do just want to be overweight on is Travis Hunter. I also like guys like Henderson, Igbuka, Loveland at their current ADP, but I'm just confident that in every rookie draft, there's going to be, one or two guys that you like that are slipping in the first round. Because, like, for me, for example, right? I like Henderson, I like Hunter, I like Igbuka, I like Loveland. Like, those are the guys that I'm interested in. You're going to have people who really like a Caleb Johnson, and you might like Caleb Johnson, but he's going to slip in certain rounds. You're going to have people, just reaching in different spots. I'm not a huge Luther Burden guy. Someone's going to draft Luther Burden at the 105, the 106 in certain drafts, right? So if I can move back and still get, someone I really like in the first round, that's something I'd be looking to do. I think the early seconds are going to improve in value just with the odds we're looking at right now. I think it could be decent for the quarterback position. I think you're going to have a wide receiver, a running back in there that are solid picks. And then if I am sitting in that mid-second, I want to either move up or I want to move back. I don't want to be stuck in that no man's land where I think there's going to be a drop off in value. I would rather either move back, get something on top of it, maybe move up in a different area, and be able to get someone from the same tier, or move up and just get someone in a higher tier in the early second round, late first. But that is going to wrap it up for this one. Would love to hear your thoughts. Any questions, drop them down below. Thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.